You notice that there is some sound in the recordings. I'm in Mumbai, it's very hot, but I never run the AC. I leave the windows open and there is a nice breeze. So some of that breeze gets recorded, but remember, we are trying to save the planet, so please tolerate the little wind noise in the podcast, okay? It's not too bad anyways, I hope. Let's look at watching TV. An hour's TV would cost you 37 grams of CO2 equivalent when you watch it on 15-inch LCD flat screen, 84 grams CO2 equivalent on a 28-inch CRT TV, 97 grams CO2 equivalent on a 32-inch LCD flat screen, and 240 grams CO2 equivalent on a 42-inch plasma screen. Energy consumption of each of these technologies are very different. 1 hour per day on the 32-inch LCD comes to 35 kilograms CO2 equivalent per year, equivalent to a 39-mile drive in an average gas-powered car. So it's not a bad thing. And if you watch TV, you're probably sitting and doing low carbon activities as opposed to driving around anyways. But the other thing to worry about is what happens to the TV even when it's turned off. So it's called standby. Most of the things we use, like the computers, refrigerators, TVs, they are keep consuming energy, several watts per hour. I think several watts per day, sorry, and the consumption of the standby power may be more than the amount of time you watch TV. Of course, for the refrigerator and computer it may be different. Nonetheless, is it worth replacing TVs with more efficient ones? It turns out that the carbon footprint of different TV options based on watching for 1 hour per day and not replacing again for 10 years is a better way to think about it. In other words, even if you replace your older one with a new, more efficient one, you don't know what happens to the old one that you either exchanged. It turns out that there are many places where old perfectly working TVs are just sitting around because everybody bought new ones. Even when there is recycling, it's not completely recycled. There are all sorts of issues. So if you buy a 350 watt 42-inch plasma screen for $750, emissions from electricity use is going to be this much, and embodied emissions are this much in terms of production, export, transport, etc. If you bought a 40 watt 15-inch LCD for $300, much lower. Buy a 110 watt 32-inch LCD for $450, and so on and so forth. Or you keep your old 28-inch CRT and you have emissions from electricity use that is much smaller than these. But of course there are aesthetics of the immersion experience, 3D sound, home theater, all these things which people enjoy, video games and so on. So we don't put value on those sorts of things. We are just looking at CO2 equivalent involved, so we have to be careful that we are not including all the externalities here. Finally, the title of the book, How Bad Are Bananas? A banana has 0 grams CO2 equivalent if you grow it in your own garden, as with the other fruits we looked at. 80 grams of CO2 equivalent when imported from from the other side of the world, or 480 grams per kilo when it's from the other side of the world. And seasonality is a matter. Some of the South American countries are the biggest exporters of banana, so are China and India. To answer the question in the title of this book, bananas aren't bad at all. Okay, there you have the answer. They are brilliant. To emphasize the point, I'm eating one as I write, the author says. So if you watch tennis or some other sport, for example, the players typically pull out a banana out of their bag when they take a break because they are trying to stay energized without eating too much before the game, I suspect. I don't know, I'm not a great athlete, but there are three main reasons bananas have such low carbon footprints compared with the nourishment they provide. They are grown in natural sunlight. No hot housing is required for banana farming. They keep well, so although they are often grown thousands of miles from the end consumer, they are transported by boats, about 1% as bad as flying. There is hardly any packaging, if any, because they provide their own. They are you have to peel the skin to eat it, so very little packaging material goes to transporting them. On top of their good carbon and healthy eating credentials, the fair trade version is readily available. So those protect the growers and so on and so forth. There are some 300 varieties of bananas, and in countries like India they are considered sacred. They are used in as offerings to God and deities and so on, and people rave about the tastes of different versions or different species of bananas, different varieties of bananas, which ones are the sweetest, which ones stay longer, and so on and so forth. But bananas are now getting all kinds of diseases as well. Even though there are more than 300 varieties, the most consumed, most popular version is the so-called Cavendish banana, named after some UK duke or so. In the 1820s, it is supposed to have been shipped from southern China to Mauritius and then made it over to the UK in the 1840s or so, and now that's the most consumed variety. Here is a short history of the Panama disease that is affecting the banana, and the Cavendish banana is supposed to be the most robust when it comes to withstanding this fungus. In terms of soil, the fungus lives in the soil and attacks the roots before spreading through the rest of the plant. Spores. It also produces spores which survive in the soil for decades, rendering land unusable for non-resistant crops. This is the Fusarium fungus that we are talking about. Race 1, the first strain which wiped out the Gros Michel, the Cavendish was found to be immune to it. Race 4, the current strain now attacks Cavendish and other cultivars. So Cavendish has now become very susceptible to new strain of the fungus as well. So with warming, with rainfall changes, extreme events and so on, we don't know how the disease pressure on the various fruits and vegetables will change, in addition to absorption of micronutrients in the crops, grains, vegetables and so on. Bananas by numbers, 17 million tons of bananas are exported globally each year, almost all of which are Cavendish. 55 million tons of Cavendish bananas grown in a year worldwide. 47% of bananas grown worldwide are Cavendish. 5 billion bananas a year are eaten just in the UK. 5 billion bananas. Ecuador, the world's biggest exporter of bananas. So this is from FAO, and this one is from PanamaDisease.org. This one is from a BBC News report, and so on and so forth. So this ends the 10 to 100 gram footprint things in our daily lives. The message is still just run through these for the sake of understanding the details of where the carbon footprints come from, even though we are just trying to do our thing of boiling water for a cup of tea, or eating a banana to go ride a bicycle, or drinking some orange juice with breakfast, and so on and so forth. So just keep these things in mind. Again, I find it very interesting to go through these things, and as the author points out, despite the complications of calculations and potential inaccuracies, the relative magnitudes are quite accurate, so just keep those in mind. And You can plan a 10 ton per year kind of lifestyle if you wish, by balancing what you drive, how much you drive, what you eat, how much you fly, and so on and so forth. So someday it'll become much easier, but right now you have to do a lot of homework to track your own carbon footprint, even for daily activities like the ones we are discussing. Okay?